This episode is brought to you by my new program, Peace with Food, the Emotional Eating Toolbox. It's a new 30-day self-guided program that helps you stop emotional eating and finally feel confident and calm and in control around food and with eating. If you're ready to stop the all or nothing cycle and build real peace with food and you want to do it at your own pace, then visit toomuchonherplate.com/peace with food to learn more. Welcome back to the Too Much on Her Plate podcast. In the last episode 201, we talked about what it really means to try to create change when your capacity is limited, and why pushing harder isn't the answer, and why pushing harder, especially when your capacity is limited, is a problem. Today, I want to build on that, because when your capacity is low, that's when emotional eating often shows up more strongly, more persistently, and that's when overeating problems are probably much harder to interrupt and might even feel automatic. And as a reminder, all of this stuff doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong, but it can work better. So here's what I've been seeing lately. Over the past several months, I have had a lot of conversations with women who are smart, who are very capable, and who are incredibly used to being able to figure things out. These women, you're probably one of them, are doing a lot right. They care. They're showing up. And they're frustrated. They're incredibly frustrated with their eating and their attempts to stop overeating or emotional eating. They'll say things like, I'm fine all day long. And then at the end of the day, or at night, or after dinner, things fall apart. Or I don't understand my cravings. I shouldn't be hungry and I eat anyway. Food is just on my mind. Or I don't want another plan. I don't want to take on another plan. I don't want to do this again. And I don't want these overeating habits either. For a lot of women, there is this feeling that I must be missing something. Why can't I connect the dots? I keep thinking this shouldn't still be so hard. I shouldn't still be struggling, and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it differently. One pattern shows up again and again. You start the day with clarity, with calm, and some resolve about how things are going to go. You know how you want to eat. You feel intentional. And then the day unfolds, right? Work, stress, decisions, more work, more stress, more decisions, the whole emotional load, people needing things from you. And by late afternoon or evening, your capacity is gone. It has been used up. And in that state, eating and overeating become really compelling, not because you don't care, but because reaching for something to eat offers fast relief. And fast relief is important when your internal resources are low or depleted or gone. That's when autopilot eating happens, and that leads to the rest of the cycle, that self-talk that's probably really familiar. Why did I do that? I shouldn't have done that. I know better. I blew it. I ruined it again. I want you to hear this. This isn't a discipline problem. It is a capacity problem. It's a problem of not being respectful and compassionate and honoring your capacity. One thing I hear a lot from the women I work with is, I know what to do, I just can't do it. So let's talk about why knowing better doesn't translate into doing better. Like I said, most women I work with know a lot about food and eating and health and healthy eating. They could write a book. They know what helps them feel better. And they also know what doesn't work. They've tried a lot of approaches. But emotional eating doesn't happen because you lack information. I want to say that again because it's so important. Emotional eating is not caused by a lack of information. It happens because your brain is looking for relief at the exact moment your resources are at their lowest. Diet culture tells us over and over and over again that success means not messing up, and that consistency means not blowing it, that you're supposed to be strong, you're supposed to be disciplined when you make your food choices. But This is so important. Real life is a guarantee of imperfection. Being human guarantees imperfection. Real life means that plans will go sideways. And who wants to have to be strong and in control of their eating for the rest of their lives anyway? The whole premise is faulty and not one that I want to build my life on. If your approach only works when everything goes smoothly and when you go smoothly, it is not sustainable. What actually helps is learning how to respond when things don't go as planned. That's another one I'm going to repeat because it is something that is fundamentally missing from almost everything you've probably learned about how to change your eating habits. What actually helps is learning how to respond, what to do, and how to think when things don't go the way you planned them. So let's take a moment that you'll probably recognize. Picture this. It is late in your day and you finally take a break. You pause, not because you're finished, but because you can't keep going at the same pace, or maybe because there's a tiny break between the last thing and your next thing. So you finally pause and you walk into the kitchen. You're not making a clear, decisive move. You're not making a clear decision as much as responding to some kind of pull. You walk into the kitchen, maybe you open the fridge, maybe you grab something while you're standing there, maybe you're distracted. In that moment, food isn't about hunger, right? It's about something else. It is about relief. It is about taking that break. If you've been there, oh, what am I saying? We've all been there. Of course you've been there. The issue isn't that this happens. The issue isn't, oh, you're bad that this happened. The issue is that you don't know what to do or how to respond in a way that helps when this happens, especially when your capacity is low. And this often happens because your capacity is low. This is why I created Peace with Food. For a long time, I've been asking myself, and I've been working toward and offering solutions that are aimed at what could make it easier. What would actually help smart women to feel calmer and more empowered and more effective around food and around their eating without requiring perfection, without putting on more pressure, without adding more stress or overwhelm. That means something reasonably short. That means something that is actually doable, something that is flexible, something that works inside of your real life. Because nobody needs another to-do list, another protocol, another set of rules that you are somehow supposed to follow, especially when your capacity is such that you don't have a lot of extra bandwidth. You need something that allows you to show up when you can and create change on your schedule and on your terms. And that is ultimately what led to my latest program, Peace with Food, the Emotional Eating Toolbox, my 30-day self-guided program. I created it specifically because most women don't need another set of rules. They need tools for the moments that actually derail them. They need to know how to be able to change their eating, their overeating, their emotional eating in a way that works for them while getting it imperfect and dealing with real life. So let's talk about what the Peace with Food program is. Peace with Food is a 30-day self-guided program designed to help you stop emotional eating patterns and feel more powerful and more in control around food. It's skills-based. You're going to learn some things, but it also helps you grow a tremendous mindset shift from diet culture, perfection expecting, unrealistic deprivation to a grounded way of thinking that leads you to actual real freedom from overeating and emotional eating. The best part is, and I'm really proud of this, it's flexible. It's designed to work even when your capacity is limited. In fact, it is designed to work especially when your capacity is limited. A core part of the program is learning how to respond when things aren't perfect or when things go sideways, because honestly, that's where real change happens. And honestly, those are the times when real overeating and emotional eating tends to happen most consistently. So the 30-day program, and incidentally, it's called a 30-day program, and there's a 30-day outline that you can follow, but you can actually complete this in 30 days or at your own pace. This 30-day program includes 4 modules. The first is what I call a curiosity reset, and that's where you learn to ditch the old ways of thinking. You learn to replace judgment and self-blame with clarity and confidence and trust in yourself. And you learn to discover how to understand your overeating patterns without turning them into failures that then lead you into those probably very familiar downward spirals. The second module is decoding hunger and cravings. And that's where you learn to understand what your cravings are telling you, and then take that information and build what I call instead strategies, which are alternatives. What do you do instead of overeating or emotional eating? Alternatives that actually work. Alternatives that don't require more bandwidth than you actually have, but that work when you don't have so much bandwidth. Strategies to not overeat, strategies of what to do instead of eating that actually match your energy and your needs. So decoding hunger and cravings, that's the second part. The third module in Peace with Food is breaking free from the head game. And that's where you learn how to step out of perfectionism, how to let go of all or nothing thinking so that you can keep going even when things aren't ideal, so that you can continue to build consistency instead of endlessly starting over. And then the final module in the 30-day Peace with Food program is locking in your lasting peace with food. I think this is really important because we have all learned things, read books, done programs, tried an approach, and it didn't get locked in, right? It sounded really good for a weekend or it lasted for a week, but it wasn't something we could sustain. So in the 4th module of Peace with Food, I am going to show you how to build in anchors, how to build in supports in your life so that you can make the new habits and the new things that you've learned in the program, all these new ways of dealing with food easier, consistent, and so that you can make your progress sustainable, because that is what we all want. Nobody wants a 10-day program or a 30-day program that only works for 30 days. The 30-day Peace with Food approach is tackling overeating and emotional eating from a different direction than what would happen if you find a new food plan. And I think it's important to underline why these tools matter. They matter because when you have the right tools, and I'm talking about the psychology-based tools that I teach you in the podcast and that we really explore inside the Peace with Food program. When you have the right tools, you are able to interrupt autopilot things, autopilot thinking, autopilot habits, autopilot overeating more often. When you have the right tools, you recover faster from hard moments. Do you know, stop and think about it. How much of your overeating happens because you have a bad moment or a misstep, or you forget what you were doing and you eat the thing you said you wouldn't, and then it feels all ruined and you don't know how to recover, and so you spiral downward. When you have the right tools, you recover faster. When you have the right tools, like I just said, you stop spiraling when things don't go as planned. So not only can you recover faster, but you can break the cycle altogether. And one of the coolest things about having these tools is that you rebuild your trust in yourself, your trust and your confidence. Not because you never overeat again, not because you have somehow learned how to get it perfect, but because you know how to respond when you do overeat, when you don't get it perfect. You know how to allow that to be humanly okay and continue to move forward. And this is actually one of the key pieces to creating real lasting freedom from overeating. I know I created it, but I really have to say the Peace with Food 30-day program is pretty cool. And I think it stands on its own as the most accessible way to build a foundation of skills that makes everything with food easier. So I know I'm going to get questions about this, and you are welcome to email if you have questions about whether the program is for you. But let me talk specifically about who the Peace with Food program is for. This is for you if you are someone who is tired of restarting. This is for you if you want something that works inside your real life, if you want consistency, if you want to have something that you know is working and will continue to work and that is easy to keep up with, to keep going with, if you want that instead of that pressure to always get it perfect. This is for you if you want tools that respect your capacity, that respect the fact that you're going to have good days and bad days and busy weeks and busy months and days that look different. If you want tools that respect your capacity and the way it ebbs and flows and still allow you to break overeating habits and to be a human being, not a superhero. And I know I'm going to get a lot of questions about whether the Peace with Food program is appropriate for you if you are somebody who has used a GLP-1 or is using one or is thinking about using one. And the answer is yes. These medications have the potential to be very helpful, but they do not address your actual relationship with food. And I am hearing from more and more women who are finding that a GLP-1 may be one piece of the puzzle for them, but figuring out what to do instead of overeating, how to deal with feelings, how to deal with imperfection, how to deal with limited capacity without turning to food or some other coping strategy continues to be a piece of the puzzle that they need help with, that they need strategy with, that they need a way to solve that works for them. This is the second podcast episode that I have recorded around capacity and honoring your capacity, your bandwidth, and knowing what to do and the importance of building a relationship with food that works when you have limited capacity. And I think it's pretty timely. This is a time where there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of stress. For a lot of people, capacity feels pretty low. And these are the kind of times when these kinds of tools matter the most. So if you're thinking these are the tools that I have been missing, know that the Peace with Food program was created with this and with you in mind. You can get all the details about the program and you can join it today at toommuchonherplate.com/peace-with-the-emotional-eating-toolbox. Yeah, I know that's a really long link, and I will put it in the show notes. You can also go to Too Much on Her Plate and just check out the shop at the top of the page, and you will see a link to the program. Listen, emotional eating is not something you change by being harder on yourself. Full stop. Emotional eating isn't something you change by being harder on yourself. It changes when you have tools that work with who you are, and that includes your bandwidth and your capacity. When you have tools that work with who you are and with your capacity, not against it, you start to build something lasting. And this is what Peace with Food and the new Peace with Food program is all about. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to Too Much on Her Plate. If today's episode hit home, if you are tired of the willpower battles, and if you're ready for tools that actually work, you can take the next step with my new 30-day self-guided program. It's called Peace with Food, the Emotional Eating Toolbox. You'll learn how to understand your hunger, stop emotional eating, and finally feel confident and calm and in control around food. Get started today at toommuchonherplate.com/peace with food.